Hello and welcome to Love in Action, February 28th, last day of February. And as Claire and I were talking, spring is just around the corner, hopefully. And yeah, so I was thinking today, instead of coming with some predetermined topic or opening ramble, as we call it, to just kind of see kind of like what's on your minds. Is there anything either you want to share or ask about in terms of your own sharing of the understanding, your work, your life, any secrets you might have that you want to share? So yeah, so the floor is open.
I've got something that could be interesting to explore. So this afternoon, before I came here, I was at this thing called Collaboration Global, which is, it's not a networking event. The whole point of it is that the idea is that they move towards collaboration. So there were two speakers, and as they were speaking, I can hear there's elements of what we talk about, but then there's always a lot of doing. There seems to be always then, this is what we've got to do about it. So I don't know whether then in me there is a feeling of frustration, which is, I know, not coming from what they're saying, but I don't know if anybody else has kind of experiences that, where I get to the point where I can't really listen to them anymore. I find myself just, and there's a few things I don't go to anymore, like the Professional Speakers Association in the UK. I just can't go to the meetings anymore because I'm just thinking, what a load of rubbish. Stop it. Stop sharing this nonsense, I want to say. And so like I just wondered, like, if any, how you, and when you get into a conversation with somebody who's doing that kind of, I mean, Tony Robbins was mentioned twice today, and I always feel like 3Ps is the Tony Robbins Recovery Club, where we all come together. From our experiences of people like Tony Robbins.
Yeah, well, he'd be welcome.
Yeah, so what are other people's experiences of that? How do you kind of, when you end up in a, like, sometimes end up in a one-to-one with somebody who's giving it that, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I do listen a lot, I find, and just let it kind of, yeah. So I just thought that might be a fun place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's start there. Is anybody does that?
I can see Peter laughing all the way through what I'm saying. I think he's empathizing.
Yes. Yeah. No, I find that my history with the three principles has been much longer and slower than pretty much anybody I'm familiar with. I know there have been laggards out there, but I've wanted to push people up against a wall, hold them by their lapels, and say, you're more intuitive than I am. You're more spiritually aware. You know something about divine love. You know this stuff better than I do. It's in your bones. It's in your experience. And yet, and yet, for all your goodwill, for all your love, your life is governed by what I would, a phrase I would steal from the internal family systems people. Your life is being governed by ego manager parts. Don't you see it? You got a slave driver. It will never set you free. That's what I want to tell people. I want them to get it. I want them to like me. Hammering away at that. And I don't know. I keep having to come back to, I will offer what instruction I think might possibly be helpful, even though I'm told often and frequently that oh no, you have to just describe your experience and other people will get it. But I recognized, I've kind of known this, but on the way back from the end of a 6-month training with Michael Neal in Los Angeles, on the way back, I stopped and visited old college friends in New Mexico. And this story will end in just a minute, but the college I went to it could have been called, Overthinkers of the Western World, because it was based on, wouldn't it be wise of us to have some acquaintance with the foundations, the best historical, philosophical, spiritual foundations of Western civilization before we move on in dialogue with anybody else? Shouldn't we do a deep dive into that? That was that particular college named St. John's College. There's a bunch of St. John colleges out there. This is the Great Books one. And its tagline is still, we are the only 19th century liberal arts college in America. And they said that during the 20th century, and they're still saying it during the 21st century. So I'm just saying, there are people out there for whom as clear an explanation, as clear a theoretical explanation as you can give is helpful. Because they've already overthought it, hugely, immensely, with footnotes. So there's some people that might respond to a good, I don't know, a good talking to. they might. I'm just saying, there were a few people out there. There were a few people who might. Yeah. But otherwise, I think anything I share really wants to be peppered with, well, this is, some statement of, this is my experience. This is my experience. And anytime I get calmer, however, whatever might possibly facilitate that, anytime I have a calmer, clearer mind, so much more is possible. And there's a kind of communion that wants to offer itself in any situation. So that's what I come back to. And I know I have my own work to do. I have my own ministry, if you will, mission, if you will. And I can't, at least I cannot easily put myself in places where all voices seem equal. I'm going to end kind of with this, but the real challenge for me is to let my attention and my prayers and meditations go in the direction of exactly the places where it seems many people are no longer listening at all. Like that's the big challenge. Not continuing to hang out with people who are still drinking from Tony Robbins' well. I don't know. Those are some thoughts I have. Toss them up in the air and do what you will.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
But the communion seems to be on offer, always.
Yeah. The thing that comes to mind for me around this is I don't know have you all read The Enlightened Gardener, Sydney Banks' novel about the gardener and his talk with the psychologist. And for me, it was interesting for me when I read that book. For the most part, almost everything that he says in that book is covered in The Missing Link or other recordings of Sydney Banks. But the thing that really struck me from that book is the way Andy responded to the others. And it was so nice how it was set up. There was one person who was totally with him. There was one person who was like almost with him. There's another person who was kind of in between, and then there was the man who was unfortunately named Tom, who was the total skeptic all the time, arguing. And it was interesting because no matter what people said, and this is what I got most from the book, and I think it really helps in talking to other people, is he would just pause. I don't know how many times in that book Sid wrote, and Andy paused for the longest time. Like I think he uses that phrase like 10 or a dozen times. And there's something in that pausing when there's a disconnect or something. And he would just say, he would use these words at most of the time. He would just say, well, the way I see it. And there's something in that for me that can diffuse any kind of sense of argument, because people are saying what they think, and it can be radically different from what we think and see. And his response was always pause, and then he would just, well, here's how I see it. And to me, there's something really powerful in that, because it's so easy when we're talking to people, especially if we're kind of introducing like a concept about the three principles. It's so easy. It's almost like it seems like something in us, in humans, that are just wired to immediately disagree or argue, or try to find like the exception. Well, what about this? What about this? And I don't know about you, but I don't want to get into debates and arguments with people. So that kind of just pausing and, well, this is what I see, if you're interested. And I think it also maybe allows people to be a little less defensive when we do that. So I don't know how that sounds to everyone, or anything else you want to say on the topic.
Well, hang on a minute. It's going to be a little, yeah.
And Michaela paused for the longest time.
And I paused for the longest time because I'm going to show you something. I'll see if I can get my foot up that high. You see it?
Nice.
Do you see what it says?
I can't
It's
see.
upside down. Oh. It says, I'm overthinking. That's my footnote to your
I
footnote,
love it.
Peter. And there's one secret. My bottoms not always match my tops. I
Okay.
love working from home. Yeah. What really popped up in the beginning of the conversation was a client, actually, who I was driving with her because she's a friend as well. And she was saying how she could feel, because we haven't met for a while in a coach client capacity. And she said, I can tell I haven't seen you for a while because I'm getting really bitchy with people.
Mm.
I'm just seeing everyone, like how, how she's being challenged on the road, just walking around, seeing things happening and being more judgy. And she asked how, just like this, how do you, that it's hard, and how do you be with people who aren't, she said, I'm finding it frustrating. And especially with friends that, anyways, and it's just, well, you have the, we have it all, but you kind of have an upper hand because so you can you can bring compassion by understanding that, oh, they don't understand this yet, but they're doing whatever they're thinking, that's what's happening. So it all makes sense when you understand what's happening. And then you can be more forgiving. Compassionate. I don't use the word forgiving really. Compassion is the word that I use. Where I feel like that was the greatest, one of the greatest gifts in the words, in how it was described, that we're always doing what makes sense to us moment to moment. And tomorrow it might look different and we'll do something differently. But right now, this is how it looks. This is how it looks for them in their life. This is how it looks for me in my life. There's just, it's given some grace. And there's also, I can think of I have a daughter who's home right now, so, but she'll be 17 this year. And her life is not happening how I thought it would and how I just pictured in my mind. And that has been the greatest challenge and gift because here's what I know about her is that she is very connected. And if something comes up and I'm thinking, where is this going? I'm way better now at just like, because there's something that actually has a and I know that within time she's going to come to her own conclusion around it. And like, I can't think, some of them, it's taken a while, like a long while to get there. But the ones that I feel really like, oh, she has always come to a, I'm not feeling the same about that. And it's just like, oh my God. But having her, but if I was to interject, because I used to interject a lot more than I do now. I'm not saying that I don't ever, but that she has just grown in ways that if I had my hands in there meddling around, she wouldn't have. It's just like, it's truly amazing. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what came up. And also, I just read the email that Stephanie sent just before, and you and Tom you and she were talking about, she asked questions about, I don't know, like what we wanted in here or what would be helpful, or what, can you expand on what you were thinking or talking about in relation to that?
So that was an email was that from today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're really interested in, I mean, this whole thing was done as a kind of a service to support other people who, and however they're sharing in the world. And so, for example, I can just, talk from my point of view. In my couple years in like being in the 3PG apprentice program, and I've been in some trainings, actually been in quite a few trainings. There are different programs and things. And just realizing that there are, there's so much available in terms of that. And some people who are sharing, who are teachers or coaches, they have their own coaches. Some people do. And so I was feeling like this is all great, but maybe there's more, or maybe there was something missing in all that. And to me, it was more of like an ongoing sense of community, that wasn't a program or a training, wasn't one-on-one coaching, and something that would be ongoing, and that people, so that we would just all be supporting each other with, the goal of spreading the understanding, spreading the principles, and just as individuals feeling more, I'll just use my own words, feeling more empowered in being in the world, whatever I'm doing, whether it's professional or not professional, that maybe there is a need, and maybe other people were feeling that too, or there are other things that people, and maybe where the question comes from, do people feel like they want or need something in the realm of sharing that would support them? So that's basically, I think, what we've been chatting about. And we've been talking about maybe doing a survey among people who are connected to Stephanie's community and her world. So yeah. So, we can, if there's something along those lines you want to chat about too, it might be interesting to hear, because everyone, I mean, even for me, no, this is just for me, even the people who are longtime teachers, maybe they need something, or maybe something would help them, because there's really no end to what we can learn and what we can explore. So, so I'm just kind of curious, when you look at your own life, your own, whether you have a practice or don't have a practice, like, is there something that you can see that might support you?
I mean, for me, it would probably be things around growing our businesses, so that we can share it more widely with more people, that kind of thing. Tell you what would be quite nice, maybe something that was a bit of it, because I do go to a mastermind once a month, but it's not 3Ps. There's 10 business owners in the room. We each get an opportunity to raise an issue that we want to talk about in our business, and then everybody in the room gives some advice or whatever. And it's quite helpful, and it's quite nice to be in that space giving help as well. Excuse me. So I wonder if, oh gosh, there's something, it's the end of my day. I wonder whether there's something like that where we can kind of get some help with business growth.
Yeah.
If we grow our businesses, then not only do we benefit from that financially, but we get this understanding to more people.
Right. And I would say, just this kind of anecdotally, that a lot of the, having been in different groups and being in trainings and whatnot, now I don't know the details of everyone's life and business, but in general, it seems like there's a lot of room to grow in that area. That people are generally, who want to share, who want to coach. Quite a lot of people are not coaching to the extent that they would like. So I feel like there's definitely something there, and that's why I was wondering, well, okay, we've been through trainings, we've been through programs, maybe we have our own mentor or coach, but maybe there's something in addition to that, in addition to all that we can create, and maybe it would be like a mastermind, or be some kind of like, ongoing community. I mean, I like the word, I'm kind of drawn to the word community, because there's a sense of everyone working together, supporting each other. There's a kind of a quality to community in my way of looking at it. And maybe to steal a phrase from Sid, maybe there is a missing link in all of this for a lot of us who want to be, grow our professional aspect of sharing.
I don't really have what really comes to mind. It's not really in relation to that. There are so many 3P communities within the community.
Mhm.
So it like, well, I've never been in a community with so many communities. I don't even really know what to say about it. It's at times like mm, confusing almost. Like I have had to put like a stop on calls because I just found my days are getting filled with, yes, paid programs and others. And it's like, wow, like I need time to do the work.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one that I enjoy because there's a playful quality to it. So it sparks something else,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So I enjoy this one. But they're like, yeah. So and when I think about it, it's like what I love the idea of mastermind because when people are in the hot seat, there's things that come up. We can see things in others or ideas or potentials that, they can't, or
Yeah.
I can't see it. Right. So I always love those kind of let it fly, what's going to come out. And it may not land, but it may, it may, and it's going to spark someone else too. So I'm always up for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said because you kind of, to me, alluded to there could be a particular form, kind of like using the mastermind
Mm.
model or something, a form. But then you also mentioned the playfulness,
Mm-hmm.
which is more of a, spirit of what, what we're doing together. And those things, wherever, if there is a missing link, and I use that term kind of loosely and playfully, it could be either or both. So I just want to say hi to Stephanie and welcome you. And coming in with a middle name Dragon today. I love it. And Steph, we were just chatting a little bit about Michaela mentioned your email and kind of discussing a little bit about what are people looking for in this realm of sharing, and I shared a little bit of how I saw it. And do you want to say anything about that?
Well, sure. Now that you put me on the spot, can you hear me okay?
Well, you're a dragon, you can handle it.
Roar! Ah, well, I came right in, Michaela, to you saying something about, people in the hot seat and something live emerging in the moment happening, which may or may not land. And I love that it's just so fun to show up in a space where that's part of the game that we're playing. What else is occurring to me? I like the idea about creating an intentional frame for it, kind of like a container. So we can show up in this space and we have an agreed upon direction that we're looking, and then what shows up there might be surprising, might be different. That's what's occurring to me in the moment, but I'm seeing more and more that intentional bit of structure around it is just enough to sort of go harness the direction, channel the direction that we're going in. So that's what occurs. And I'm arriving in between things, so I'll be here only probably for about the next 15 minutes. I don't,
Okay.
hopefully it won't be too disruptive, but I wanted to at least pop in and say hello. And I just want to share something that I've been noticing. I think it sort of started with an experiment of connecting with people when I go places. Like, what if I just connect with someone and then interact? But not like as a big deal, like I need to see their soul or something, but just like actually sort of be with this person. And I'm just noticing if I pause for a moment and do that, like I'm in a Starbucks right now, and there's so much like playfulness and banter that's available, and like not always with everyone, but often with many people. And I'm like, wow, has that always been available? And I just never saw it. So cool. So I am caffeinated. I'll stop there. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me to say hi.
A caffeinated dragon is the most powerful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for that. It's good to see you and have you here with us for this period. So anything else on that topic that comes to mind for people, or just, and it's a question I think we're going to continue to explore over the next couple months. Like what would be really valuable to people. So
No, I would just amplify the it's my sense is in the Chinese calendar, this is the year of the caffeinated dragon. So preeminent year. It comes only once every 64 years. So take it while you can get it.
yeah, it's great.
So yeah, no, and just to say, thanks for just opening the question up. Yes, it does strike me that it would be desirable for there to be community open to all sorts of questions, but nevertheless with some framework around it, because that works for me. That makes sense to me, just in terms of my experience in the past. If you're going to open up to, if the doors are relatively open, then it's awfully handy to have a few expectations. But yeah, and that's just to say, if nothing else, it makes me want to start. Before I start over explaining things, that for a variety of reasons, I lost touch with things that were nascent a few years ago, and just in terms of some initial communities getting formed. And I know that there's a thing out there for just people to just come and experience somebody holding the space.
Yeah.
So I know there's at least one element of that, and so it's time for me to do exploring, just to see what is out there, because I've been attracted to the people that in my researches starting 19 years ago. Anybody who showed up my research, when they finally got a website, it was like I was finally in touch with them over the years. So it's like there are a number of communities based on a number of pretty excellent and diverse teachers out there in Three Principles world. So I mean, I would include Keith Blevins and absolutely Amy Johnson, and less present than he was on the Three Principles movies. Dickon Bettinger. As much as I could access him, I'm just saying there's 3 or 4 others I could probably name as well. And then the folks who were with until it finally dissolved, the the Center for Sustainable Change. So just saying, it's time for me to look that direction, really see what's out there. But yeah, anything that offers a human touch, as well as support for people who want to actually gain their legitimate livelihoods from putting this forth.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Peter. And you know, another thing that for me where this idea kind of started, even before Steph and I started talking about it. Now, you know, Michaela, you were referencing like the number of groups and things that are out there. And so I was in for a couple of years the 3P apprentice program. I don't know if any of you have been in that as well, but it's amazing the amount of things you can do, the webinars and the little groups and whatnot. But one of the things though that I was feeling in that is, to me, community, you can call something a community, but to me what community really is about connection with others. And so every so often we'd be in these apprentice program calls and someone would just start a thread in the chat. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we could get together in between these meetings and talk to each other and that kind of stuff? And people would, you know, find each other. And I've done this too. Like I would reach out to someone, email them, connect with them. But I think there's a way of doing community where you're also really intentional about, you know, the community is about connecting people to each other. And I think there are ways of doing that beyond what I have seen in some of the groups that I've been in. You know, there's a lot of people involved and there are things happening, but to me, the feeling of connection quite maybe felt like it was missing. So maybe that's from my own personal kind of standpoint, that's where a lot of this started, like this desire to be more connected with people, you know, rather than just individually reaching out to people. So I think there's a way of doing that within a community if you value that and you see that as being, you know, an important part of community. So that's kind of the direction I was looking in as well. So Claire, do you have put you on the hot seat? Do you have anything to say on this topic? I was also curious if we maybe wanted to circle about back to your original question and your original exploring about, you know, being in other environments where people are talking and sharing things or saying things that don't quite resonate, and anything more on that, or did this discussion that we had spur anything on for you?
Sometimes the most challenging thing is finding the question
Mm-hmm.
to ask, or the, you know, like the what it is that is missing, maybe, or whatever. Okay, so something just came up. Sometimes you just got to start, you just got to put your foot on the gas, and then yeah. So I'm all online. So there's the community, and I know like Mara Gleason, I think she is one who spurs people on to get into their community. And when I think of that, I just think, oh, it just feels really like, where do I start? And I've been, you know, even before the pandemic, I felt like I was quite isolated, that my world got smaller. So it's like, there's like an expansion physically, as well as like not just online. So see, I don't really know what the question is, because maybe there is groups already who I could just go there and learn how to do that and decide if I really want to do that. Tomorrow or Thursday, I'm meeting with a woman she had some other businesses, and a few weeks ago, she put something out about this mental health thing that she's doing locally. So I knew her, so I just said, what's it about? Because like, if it's not something I can, if I'm going to be like this, you know, if it's very traditional mental health stuff, then, so we're going to meet on Thursday. But it's like, okay, well, right now it feels good for someone else to spearhead, and I'll join in. So we'll see if there's a place for me there, you know, that I could be of assistance, or if I do need to create my own, the real mental health platform that's
Yeah.
inside of you already. The platform doesn't come from out here. It's already built in there. Let's look inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. And you know, that's also something that you know, it's definitely a way doing work in the community. Like you mentioned, Mark Gleason and the One Solution. You know, that's another way of sharing. And you know, what little I know about her and her husband, and I have been in some of their programs, is I think the one thing that I admire about them is that they will totally get in over their head. Like I mean, I've just heard little bits of their story and deciding to do something, and the fact that doesn't, getting in over their head doesn't stop them. And I know in my life, a lot of times I wouldn't even consider getting in over my head, but they have some kind of a way of just being with that, you know.
There's a couple of things just coming to mind for me. One is that, you know, whether you want to physically go into your community or not is really down to what kind of business you want to build. And I want to build a business where I live in my motorhome and go visit Stephanie in Portugal. That's definitely a plan. And so I don't really, I haven't got a local, it's quite a big local network, because I used to have an in-person hypnotherapy business. So I've got quite a big network here in Leeds. But I don't want to do too much in that direction, because it doesn't fit with the long-term kind of direction of travel, as I like to call it. But having said that, I know a lady she does know about 3 principles, but she's a business coach. She does all sorts of other things as well. And she sets herself up in a cafe. She was living in Ibiza for a bit, and then she was living in Brazil, I think, for a bit. She just sets herself up in a cafe with a little sign that says, if you need any help, like,
Wow.
come and sit down and have a drink with me and a chat. And
Wow.
she got clients out of it.
Wow.
It was just, she just decided that's what she was going to do. She's going to sit in a cafe, or outside a cafe, probably in Ibiza in Brazil. You can sit outside the cafe, can't you? And just sit there with this sign and see who rocked up and see what happened. And she got clients out of it, because people were just, they were intrigued, because there's this crazy woman sitting with a sign inviting a conversation. But also, you know, it was just, I think because she felt like, yeah, I've been kind of trapped in somewhere for a long time, like we all had, and she just wanted to get out of the house and have some conversations with people. And a bit like Steph was saying earlier about, I love random conversations with people in Starbucks. I was going networking a few weeks ago, and I ended up in Starbucks because I was running early, because I had to drop my mum at the station in Leeds, and I had this gap. So I went and sat in Starbucks, got chatting to these two fellas, and one of them connected with me on LinkedIn. We had a really good conversation, but we had a good conversation there, and then he turned out to be a business person as well on LinkedIn, and we connected with, yeah, so it just, and we had such a great conversation. Me and these two blokes, just at random. So yeah, that stuff's possible all the time, and you never know, a little bit of something you've said that's touched somebody. Like today, I was on this mastermind thing this morning, and when I posed my question, one of the women who answered my question, she said, "Your posts are so impactful." She said, "I read your posts every day on LinkedIn, they're so she never bloody comments or bloody likes or anything, for God's sake. She's a bloody lurker. So I was just like, oh my God, she's a lurker, this woman. she's there reading all my sodding content, not saying a thing. But yeah, you know, you don't know, a little conversation with somebody or a little bit of something you say, just a word or two can be so impactful. You just never know.
Yeah.
Could be days later they go, oh my God, now I see what that crazy woman in the cafe. I know what she's on
Yeah.
about now.
Yeah. Now, Claire, is this
Yeah.
someone who you know personally?
Say that again.
Is this person who put the sign out? Is it someone who you know
Yeah, I know her. I don't know her. I've not met her physically, but she was quite a regular attendee at my ladies networking event I used to run, and she spoke a couple of times at it. And then we've had conversations, and I was on a newsletter for a while. Actually, later on in her life, she ended up being a taxi driver in Ibiza. Random, but they had a massive shortage of taxi drivers. She thought, she's just this kind of intuitive, go with the flow person. She just went, oh, thought it, I'll be a taxi driver then. So she was making an absolute fortune being a taxi driver in Ibiza for a while. So flipping random is that.
and probably still talking to people, right?
Yeah, probably. She's probably still changing people's lives just by chatting to them in a taxi.
Yeah,
There
she
you go.
sounds like it'd be fun to hear her in an interview. So if you do any interviewing, it might be a fun interview to do. That's
Yeah,
why I
definitely.
asked if you knew her personally. And you know, the thing about the sign, it's so interesting. Like there have been times where I have been tempted to. So when I go out to the cafe, to Starbucks or whatever the local cafe is here, I will almost always now take out some of my art supplies. You know, and you know, I'm doing stuff, and you know, occasionally someone will say something, ask a question or say something, but a lot of times it just, you know, it's not happening. And I have so much art that I just want to let loose into the world. You know, I had that idea of just bringing a pile of art, put a sign up that says free art, you know, but even that I feel sheepish about, you know, even attracting the attention. So to actually put up a sign to say, do you want to have a chat? You know, that to me, that seems like huge. But it also strikes me if you know, you could just be out and about and remind yourself that you're open. Like you could be sitting in a cafe and not have a sign up, but just kind of say to yourself, yeah, if somebody wants, you know, just be inviting on a more kind of energetic level and see what happens.
Put the sign up, Tom. It's your growing edge.
All right,
As
Claire. Okay.
Angus Ross says. He says,
Well,
do it. It's your growing edge. It's your growing edge.
I'm gonna put on the sign. Claire told me to do this. And then they'll say,
Yeah,
"Oh,
and
who's
my email
Claire?"
address.
They'll say, "Who's Claire?" She's
This
someone who can
crazy
get
woman.
people. She's someone who can get people to do things. I think I want to hire her.
I'll send you some cards.
Yeah. I can say, by the way, I wasn't talking about me. Here's a card of someone in England. And then, you know, if you give me a little kickback, that'll keep me
Brilliant.
going.
I love when a plan comes together.
Yeah, me
As
too.
we used to say
Hey,
in the A
yeah,
team.
this is kind of the thing, going back to what we were talking about earlier, when we get into these, you know, we start either brainstorming or just sharing together. That's often when things happen.
Mm.
Come up with a brilliant
That's
idea.
what I like about a mastermind, really, is that you do end up with, like, even when you're hearing somebody, so in this meeting I go to on a Tuesday morning, everybody gets a chance. So even somebody else's issue that they've raised, you kind of go, oh yeah, actually there's a bit, I can always come away with a list from other people's advice. I pinch, you know, you're pinching other people's advice. So it does have this really nice cumulative, I don't know what this was, but cumulative effect that you learn from all of it. It's
Totally.
really cool.
Yeah.
And if we kind of, and that was also, as well as being this mastermind amazing space, was then immersed in the three principles as well.
Yeah.
You'd get something different, I think, energetically. It'd be very different.
Yeah. And I happen to know that that Amy Johnson and Rohini and Angus and Barb Patterson and Scott Kelly do a master, have been in their own mastermind for years. And I see them as being, somewhat successful people in the world, right? Have a lot of things going on. So that's where I first saw the mastermind idea. So it is happening. So
Yeah, is mastermind something that, does it operate both in three principles and outside of three principles, or what is it?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few peer group boards are quite a good example. I don't know if you have those over there as well. They meet with the same group on a regular basis. The group I go to there is a core of people who are there regularly. They like do a subscription, but other people can just drop in. The meeting isn't full to the point where they can't be, which is quite nice because you get a little extra flavour of somebody different, a couple of different people each time with different ideas. But yeah, a mastermind is there's a formula for it, really. I've got a little structure of how you actually run it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's something that's right across the business world. Peer groups are a good example.
Yeah, and see, I'm glad you said that, Claire, because when I was talking earlier about community and connection, what people were kind of craving, the word peer is really, right on. When I was in my master's of education, we went through all the different ways that people learn, from, just sitting, for a 2-hour lecture, which is like the most ineffective way of learning, just receiving, to other ways of learning, at the very end of the program, the most dynamic, most revolutionary even form of education is just 8 to 10 people getting together on their own without like a leader. And they would come together, they would decide, well, what do we want to learn? What are the resources? And then, yes, maybe they would bring in somebody who is a so-called expert to come in and consult with them. But it was, they were empowered, they were equal, they were empowered. And there's something in there that I really, really like. And connected, of course. So.
But thank you. Again, thank you for contributions from everybody here. But just even that last part was, I worked at a community college for 20 years, and so like I'm kind of familiar with the varieties of learning styles, but the one of what I just said, like 8 to 10 people. Nobody in charge, nobody who already seems to know everything about the subject. That's really fertile territory. And curiously, the college that I went to attempted to do that in every class.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd kind of forgotten. Oh yeah, well that was supposed to be the structure. It wasn't imbibe this. Believe it, march forward with the classics under your belt. It was get in there and see what you can see what comes to you, see what you see. Like, oh, thanks for the reminder. And I'll say that and Michaela, I think you said it in a way that I heard it loudest, but just kind of like I'm not even sure what the question is. It's like, oh, brilliant. That's so helpful. Not even sure what the question is. Yeah. And then the other tidbit I would come in with is, this vision I had when I was 4.5 years old, was just like God actually holding the entire globe in one hand and then blessing it. No, it was that kind of blessing it. Like, and feeling I was being drawn into being part of that, whatever that might mean. I'm challenged with the notion of what would it mean?
Yeah.
To bless the entire world especially all the ornery people on it. What if we're actually kind of in this, we're really in this boat together, maybe only a minority will allow us how that's essential to our understanding. So it's like, that is absolutely one of the groups that if nobody else hosts that one, I'll host it.
Yeah.
And I don't know fully how to get there by a long shot.
Yeah.
So that's like, oh, thank you all. You I had no expectation that something might really get kind of clarified and laughed at. But you provided good company. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what can happen when we come together like this, and we explore together and are open and start wondering even about the questions. So yeah, so we have just a couple minutes left. Does anyone else want to say anything in closing?
Who's on the iPhone?
That's what I was just
I don't
gonna
know.
say.
If the iPhone person wants to say hello, please feel free to. We're happy you're here. And if not, that's okay too. So this has been great, and we'll continue this exploration. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please feel free to either send them to us via email or put them in the WildInspire community. Put some questions or some ideas in there, and then because other people will see those as well. But in the meantime, we will go onward and be in touch. And thank you so much for being here. This has really been a wonderful hour together.
Thank you all too.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye. Bye.